Before the first light of civilization fully touched the deserts of Nehekhara, before the rise of mighty empires and the endless wars of mortals, there existed a being whose name would forever be etched into the annals of death and terror. He was not born to be ordinary, nor was he destined to die like any other mortal. His name was Nagash, the prince who sought immortality, the sorcerer who would defy the natural order, and the architect of undeath itself. In a world where kings ruled with swords and priests ruled with faith, Nagash ruled with a secret far darker than any blade, the forbidden knowledge of necromancy. Whispers tell of a young prince, consumed by jealousy, who watched his brother, the favored heir, bask in the adoration of the people while he remained in the shadow of insignificance. Driven by ambition and a hunger for eternal life, Nagash sought power from places mortals were warned never to tread, learning secrets from exiled sorcerers and forbidden tomes that promised dominion over life and death. His experiments were relentless, his obsession absolute. Slowly, the first seeds of horror took shape, corpses that moved without soul, bones that obeyed commands, and shadows that hungered for flesh. For the first time, death was no longer a final law, but a tool, a weapon, and a path to unmatched dominion. This is the story of Nagash, the first necromancer, the undying king, the dark god whose rise would shatter kingdoms, enslave souls, and forever change the world. From the cursed deserts of Nehekhara to the cataclysmic events that would reshape reality itself, we will follow the forbidden ascent of the first undead king, uncover the secrets of his unholy power, and witness the rise of a legend that would haunt mortals for eternity. In the sun-scorched lands of Nehekhara, where golden sands hid the bones of countless generations, Nagash was born as a prince of Khemri, a kingdom famed for its wealth, power, and reverence for the dead. From the moment he opened his eyes, it seemed fate had marked him for greatness, though not for the reasons any court or priest might celebrate. He was intelligent, cunning, and insatiably curious, yet he was overshadowed by his younger brother, a hero adored by the people and blessed by the gods. This constant comparison, this gnawing sense of inadequacy, awakened in Nagash a desire far darker than mere ambition, the desire to escape death itself. When he encountered sorcerers exiled from distant lands, creatures who whispered secrets of life, death, and the soul, Nagash seized the knowledge with the hunger of a man who knew that his destiny would not be written by others. He experimented secretly, stealing energy from the living, bending corpses, and performing rituals that the priests of Khemri would call blasphemy. His obsession grew like a shadow across his soul, until nothing mattered except mastery over mortality. The line between man and monster blurred, for Nagash was no longer content to live and die as mortals did, he sought to become something eternal, a god in his own right. As he delved deeper into forbidden magic, he began creating instruments of undeath, artifacts, and rituals that would soon form the foundation of an empire built on bones. Yet even in this early stage, cracks appeared, whispers of rebellion, fears of betrayal, and the quiet knowledge that his hunger could not be contained, not even by the sands of Nehekhara itself. The world around him did not yet know the terror it would soon inherit. Nagash's hunger for immortality demanded power beyond simple spells or minor rituals. He conceived of the Black Pyramid, a structure of impossible geometry and dark enchantments, a tomb and a temple that would amplify his mastery over death. Within its shadow, the desert began to change, the air turned heavy, crops withered, and the very soil became tainted. Undeterred, Nagash raised his first legions of undead, creatures that obeyed his will without question. Skeletons clattered across the sands, bound by magic, their hollow eyes burning with unholy fire. Those who resisted, mortal priests and noble warriors, fell beneath his spell, their bodies added to his ever-growing army. His first true betrayal came when he struck down his own brother, claiming the throne in a night of blood and darkness. With the crown upon his head, Nagash ruled not as a king of men but as a master of the dead. Priests who had once guided the souls of Nehekhara were now bound into servitude, their chants twisted into incantations that fueled his ever-expanding dominion. Villages disappeared, cities fell silent, and terror became the currency of his reign. Every ritual, every conquest, brought him closer to the ultimate goal, a world where death was no longer natural, where the living and dead alike bowed before his might. Even as whispers of resistance formed in secret, Nagash's army grew, unrelenting, a harbinger of the nightmares to come. It was the dawn of a new era, the first time in history that the dead had marched, and for Nagash, it was only the beginning. The terror wrought by Nagash did not go unanswered. Across Nehekhara, priest-kings and nobles rallied their forces, refusing to bow to a necromancer whose power defied both gods and mortals. Nagash faced his first great rebellion, and the land became a battlefield soaked in blood, plagued by dark storms conjured by his sorcery. Yet his genius lay not only in raising the dead but in corrupting the living to serve his designs. He turned loyal subjects into traitors, manipulated enemies into despair, and summoned monsters from realms unseen. Among his followers was Archon the Black, a devoted lieutenant whose cunning and loyalty mirrored Nagash's own, and who would later become a legend in his own right. The battles raged across deserts and ruins, cities crumbled under the weight of dark magic, and the screams of the living mingled with the rattle of bones. Despite his growing power, Nagash was forced to retreat after fierce resistance, but even in defeat, his ambition only deepened. In his hidden sanctum of Nagashizar, he refined his craft, experimenting on souls, devising new rituals, and learning from every setback. The war was not merely for conquest, it was a crucible that forged Nagash into a being whose patience, cruelty, and brilliance would ensure that no force of man or god could ultimately defy him. Every undead army he sent forth was a lesson, every failed siege a step toward perfection. In these early trials, Nagash became more than a prince, more than a sorcerer, he became a symbol of the inevitability of death itself. Nagash's obsession with life and death extended beyond mere corpses. In his experiments with soul manipulation, he created a new, more insidious form of life, the vampire. Through his alchemy and dark rituals, blood became a conduit for power, and the first vampire, Nehekhara, arose to defy mortality in ways even Nagash could not entirely control. She would go on to found Lamia, establishing a secretive empire of blood drinkers whose influence would stretch across the ages. Nagash's relationship with these creatures was complex. He saw in them the potential for loyalty and power but also the seeds of rebellion. Each vampire was a living monument to his mastery of death, yet independent will made them unpredictable, dangerous even to their creator. As the undead spread, mortals began to whisper of horrors that could walk in daylight, drain life with a single bite, and command the shadows themselves. The world of Nehekhara was no longer a place for the living alone, it had become a stage for creatures that existed between life and death, forever bound by the unholy science of necromancy. In trying to control all that he had created, Nagash pushed the boundaries of magic further than anyone had dared, ensuring that his influence would endure through the ages, not only through legions of skeletons but through the eternal hunger of vampires, a power that would haunt kingdoms long after his first death. Though Nagash's mortal form was destroyed in countless battles, his essence could not be extinguished. Bound to artifacts of unimaginable power, his soul endured, waiting for the right moment to return. Centuries passed, civilizations rose and fell, but the shadow of Nagash never left the world. Through schemes and manipulation, through the unknowing hands of Skaven and other dark forces, he began to weave a path back to physical existence. Each disaster, each plague, each shadow that spread across the lands was a step toward his resurrection. Mortals believed him gone, yet his influence had already altered the world's fabric, shaping history, war, and magic in ways none could foresee. When he finally returned, his power was unlike anything the world had witnessed. The first undead king had become something more, a being capable of reshaping life and death with a mere thought. His return was not just a comeback, it was a reckoning, a dark reminder that death itself could be conquered and enslaved, and that all who had lived, and all who would live, were now under the gaze of the god of necromancy. With his return, Nagash's ambitions became boundless. He consumed entire nations' souls to rebuild his body, ascending beyond mortal limitations into a godlike being. Empires crumbled under his shadow, and the living and the dead alike fell before him. As the end times unfolded, Nagash became the ultimate master of undeath, leading armies of skeletal warriors, night haunts, and vampires across the world, uniting all forms of death under his dominion. Even the powers of chaos and the greatest champions of Sigmar could not halt his advance, for Nagash was no longer merely a sorcerer or king, he was inevitability incarnate. His empire of souls stretched across continents, and his influence continued to echo into the age of Sigmar, where Ossiarch Bone Reapers march in his name, and undead legions follow his command. Nagash's story is a testament to ambition, obsession, and the terrifying power of necromancy. He is a reminder that death is not an end but a beginning for those who dare to command it, and that the first undead king, once a mortal prince, has become an eternal god whose shadow will haunt the world forever. Nagash's story is not merely the tale of a sorcerer or a king, but a chilling reminder of the price of ambition and the inevitability of death itself. From a mortal prince consumed by jealousy to the first necromancer who defied the natural order, and finally to a god whose power stretches across time and reality, Nagash stands as the ultimate embodiment of undeath. His legions march endlessly, his influence seeps into every shadow, and his legacy persists in every creature that walks the line between life and death. For mortals, his name is a warning whispered in fear, for the living, a challenge that no sword, spell, or hero can ever fully erase. Yet even in his terrifying dominance, there is a story of vision and unrelenting will, a testament to a mind that dared to conquer the greatest of all limits, mortality itself. As the world continues to turn and civilizations rise and fall, Nagash endures, watching, plotting, and shaping the fate of every soul, living or dead. His rise may have been forbidden, his methods dark beyond comprehension, but the echoes of his power resonate eternally, reminding all that death is neither mercy nor end, but a tool, a weapon, and a kingdom in itself. And so, the shadow of Nagash stretches across the ages, eternal and unyielding, a dark god whose story is far from over, and whose influence will haunt the world as long as life itself dares to exist.